pretty well hidden. That was the entrance. Where you see Chapella Grill entrance, that was the circus location. And the big sign stood up there. These are the stairs that thousands of people went up every night in the week. 2 flights of stairs, that was the entrance. And as soon as you hit the top floor, the sound system hit you. And the floor was shaking. But about 2 years ago when I started writing the book, I wanted to get the feel of it. I wanted to get the memory back. So for the first time in 35 years, I drove here from my home in Wyckoff. And I drove down Route 4. I went around by Fairleigh Dickinson College. That was my turn. I took twice a day for 5 years, every single day. And I came here, I pulled into the parking lot. I went up those stairs. I walked down that hallway. I sat at the bar and I just ordered a glass of wine. And Ricardo, the owner of the restaurant, greeted me. And I ordered something. And all of a sudden I had this flashback. I closed my eyes almost, or I felt like I closed my eyes, and I can hear the band playing. I could see the crowd. I could see my father at the door. I could see my brother behind the bar grabbing money out of cash registers because they were filling up so fast. The bands were playing. I took myself back there, and then when Ricardo came up to me and said, "Can I help you?" It's like I woke up out of a trance that I was in. It was, talk about nostalgia. It was, you could feel it. It's moving, you know. So it took me back, and all these memories came back, and that's when I really started getting into writing and feeling the whole experience. So it's different. It's different. Talk about nostalgia. It's, you know, I think you can feel I'm moved by it, you know. So, and I hope that when people read the book, they feel it too, and they're moved by it. And that's all I'm interested in doing. There's nothing else in it for me, except for to recreate that feeling of the rock and roll scene from back in the day, the greatest era of our time. So that's what brings us back here, and it's history. In Glen Rock with a brother and 4 sisters. It was a quiet bedroom community in Glen Rock, right next to Fairlawn. At the age of probably 11 or 12 years old, I constantly hustled. I worked at the luncheonette down the street from my parents' house. It was about 3 blocks away. And I'd go in there on Saturday and Sunday mornings and put the newspapers together, work behind the counter, whatever it took to make 50 cents an hour. It was a good payday. After a couple of years that I had worked there, I kind of convinced my father to open up a place of our own. And we opened up a place in South Hackensack. But my father had the guts to go all in again and actually bought an existing luncheonette in Rochelle Park. I was 17 years old at the time. So I would get the early work release program from school, I guess you could call it, where you get out early from study hall. And I would go there and work lunches and, you know, after school, work weekends, and that's all I ever wanted to do was work. So we were successful at that luncheonette. And then there was an opportunity in Westwood, and we bought a diner, an existing diner. I saved some money from working for my father in the luncheonette in Rochelle Park, and we bought the diner. And that was a success. We kept that about a year. We built that business up, sold it for like double what we paid for it. And then we went and bought a luncheonette, an existing successful luncheonette in Wyckoff which we also built up and doubled what we paid for it. And then after that, we were kind of looking for something where there was a liquor license, you know. So my brother wasn't kind of doing anything at the time. And so we thought between my father, my brother, and myself, we would open up something with liquor. My brother had worked at a local bar restaurant in New Milford, and he had heard about this place called Peanuts that was for sale in Bergenfield. So we went, we looked at it. It was a big facility, liquor license, 5,000 square feet, unlimited parking. And my brother at the time, he was 20, I was 25, my father was 54. My brother had gone out almost every weekend, watching bands. One of the bands kind of that inspired him was White Tiger. I don't know if you heard of White Tiger. They were pretty big in the day. And he said, you know, why don't we turn this restaurant nightclub scene, you know, make a rock club out of it by building a stage and putting these great bands in there and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the long story short. My brother had booked the bands in the club, and the talent that we were able to attract to the club was amazing. I mean, John Kane's Steppenwolf played there at least a couple times. Joe Perry from Aerosmith, when the band broke up, he went out and he called himself the Joe Perry Project. So he played. We had a band called Blue Angel, which a lot of people don't realize that was Cyndi Lauper before she became famous. There was just so many bands. Robert Hunter, he was a lyricist for the Grateful Dead. He played at our club as well. Of course, the popular bands like Twisted Sister played. And so we were like a mid-sized club. We weren't the biggest, we weren't the smallest, we weren't the best, but we were able to attract talent. And so over the years, people have said to me, you know, every time I tell my war stories about the club scene, they're like, you should write a book. And all along I said to myself, you know, I'm not an author, I'm not a writer. I don't know how this is going to happen, but it happened. That's kind of the long story short. And clubs, there was 1 million of them. They were all over the United States. If you talk about the East Coast here, Route 35 down South Jersey, bands were playing 6 and 7 nights a week. I couldn't wait to go to work. That's what my life was like for 5 years. So it was pretty crazy. And then when the drinking age went to 21, we cut down to 5 nights a week. And it was very difficult, even 5 nights a week. But that's all in the book. That's another story. It talks about, that's why I call the book Rock and Roll Meltdown, because it's exactly what happened. Drinking age is 18, it goes to 21. The bands, a lot of them fell apart. They had to sell their fancy box trucks. I mean, they had full crews. They had roadies. They were just like rock stars. They would come into a club, their road crew would have all the equipment set up. All they have to do is plug in and play, and have 500, 600, 700, 1,000 people screaming, yelling, and loving them. That was their life, 5, 6, 7 nights a week, and they were all 21, 18, 25 years old, making a shitload of money, and that was their life. And so, you know, the agents were making a fortune, the clubs were making a fortune, the bands were making a fortune. There was just so much money. It was all cash. There was no such thing as a check back then. My father and I had the experience in the restaurant business, owning luncheonettes and a diner before. So that was kind of my responsibility. We did serve lunch and we did serve dinner. We were trying to do that to appease the town. We didn't want to tell the town we're opening up this hot rock club. It wasn't going to fly. So we said we're going to be a restaurant with a little entertainment. And then all of a sudden you got Crystal Ship, and you got the Plasmatics, and you got the Ramones. So it was a real, you know, eye-opener for the town of Bergenfield, especially for the first 2 years when we had lines down the street every night, and they needed to hire 2 more full-time police officers because of us. But it was a staged act every single night. At the end of the night, we got a big sack of cash, all sticky and soaked with booze, and It was my job to go home at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and separate it, count it, dry it out sometimes, and then go to the bank the next day, and they would complain if the bills weren't all facing the same way, because there was so much of it. But then there was the Rock and Roll Meltdown, and that's, the drinking age went up. Everybody got killed overnight. Nobody expected it.